Well, first of all, I grew up in a little fishing village in Sweden, on the west coast in the North Sea, on an island. And so we were very close to the environment, and I got to love the environment. I became a serious bird watcher because in the summers, as kids, we worked on the fishing fleet, and when the trawlers dumped the stuff on deck, we had to sort it out to stand up to your knees and sea creatures and throw them overboard, and the birds come like crazy. And so I was really excited about nature. And then, but of course, then Roger Tory Peterson's book of birds came out in Swedish, the great American writer. He was the guy who came up with the first field guide. And it drew my fantasy outside of the fishing village and outside Sweden too, and in Europe and everywhere. So I left the village and went to high school, and then I went to art school in Stockholm, in Sweden, in the capital, in the Royal Academy. And there, we were not, in the 60s, we were not supposed to do realism. We were not supposed to do nature or anything. We were supposed to do abstract stuff. And I had a hard time with it. And my teacher was worried about me because you were supposed to do your own thing. And I sculpted a sort of stylized bear. And he said, "What's that?" "Oh, it's a bear, sir. It's supposed to be your own thing." "It is my own thing, sir." So, "Well, you never make a living sculpting animals." So I believe him, and it's true. He was worried for me. I was a poor kid from a fishing village, so I got education in a museum, in the National Museum of Nature in Stockholm, and I became a museum curator eventually. I studied in Germany, in France. Then I ended up in Africa. I always dreamt of Africa, reading Hemingway and everything. And I became the curator for Botswana's National Museum, building the museum. And I was there for 7 years. And that's where I learned to speak English, by the way. So you recognize my Swedish accent. And then the Denver Museum of Nature and Science came on expedition. And I guided them in the field. I was their field guide, making sure they were building a giant African exhibit in the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. So I became the field guide, making sure that nobody got hurt. We killed some animals to be skinned, to be mounted, for display, to teach people. And then I had a great time with the Americans. Evenings in the campfire, parties, and that was great. And when they left me a ticket to visit Denver. So thank you. And I came to visit Denver for the first time in my life. And like I say, I was paid by African wages, so I didn't have much money. They put me up in a first-class hotel, and they took me up in the mountains to cowboy bars with sawdust on the floor. I thought I was in the Wild West. Woohoo! And watched the bison herd on the Lookout Mountain, Buffalo Bill's grave. I loved it. And then when I was ready to go back to Africa, they offered me the job to supervise the building of the African hall, the whole hall. And the reason I accepted it by then is that I had discovered that the Western art movement was underway, which was realism. I always sculpted on the side. I mean, I did Botswana's president, and I did portrait commissions and stuff, but I never really sold my animal sculptures. But I took the job. I worked for 2 years in the Denver Museum, designed the whole African exhibit, opened the first phase, and then I jumped off the bridge to do my sculptures full time. And I've been living my dream ever since for almost 48 years. And I love this country. I'm the most loving American you ever meet because it gave me the opportunity to live my dream.